Welcome to the Stranger Than Fiction podcast. I'm Chase.
And I'm Adam. On this episode, we are continuing our Halloween theme that we started with last week's Creepy Kids episode. And side note, kids are still fucking creepy.
Yeah, still creepy.
We hope you agree with us on this one now.
Yeah, it definitely are stories that stick with you. That's for sure. You don't just listen and then forget. That's for sure.
Still haven't found my shirt either. But
Someday, Adam. Someday we will find it.
on this one, we are talking about mummies. So mummies obviously are a fixture for Halloween or scary movies these days.
Like Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, like Brendan Fraser. It's not entirely clear how this originated, but it's thought to have been attributed with the Curse of the Pharaohs, which we'll talk a bit more about later. But it is a definite fact that under normal conditions, a dead body decays, and that is gross.
Yes, that. I guess that's a fair statement. That is gross.
It's a fact.
Yeah, that's true.
So mummies, obviously, they don't really decay. So, I mean, it's fascinating and interesting and kind of creepy. But
Well, they're designed not to decay. So
exactly. That's unnatural. So that's
job well done.
That's why it's weird.
Okay.
So, I mean, we've all seen a mummy in a movie or on TV. You know, this figure wrapped in a bunch of cloth or toilet paper if it's a cheap Halloween costume.
That's what I'm going as this year for Halloween is a toilet paper mummy.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
But what exactly is a mummy?
It is an organless. It's like a jerky human. It's a jerky human.
Yeah, I guess that's
a
fair
salted,
representation.
dried, aged human.
That's pretty true. So,
Yeah.
you know, a mummy is something that has undergone mummification, which is a process in which the skin and flesh of a corpse can be preserved. The process can occur naturally, like through cold weather, acid, or dryness, or it can be intentional. So obviously the most common mummies were probably Egyptians, or at least that's the most popular ones, right?
A little side note: have you ever seen that picture or the story of the guy that was on a sailboat and he died of a heart attack or something, and then just drifted out to sea and kept until somebody discovered him, and then when they discovered him, he was basically mummified because of all the salt in the air. Did you ever hear that story?
No, I've never heard that story.
All right.
But you're correct that lots of dry and salt can definitely lead to mummification or jerky human, as you put
Jerky
it.
human. Nom nom nom.
Mummies of humans and other animals have been found on every continent, so it's not exclusive to Egypt, even though that's where probably most people attribute them to. In fact, in Egypt, though, where they are most popular, over 1 million animal mummies have been found, and most of them are cats, actually.
Cat mummies.
Yeah, cat mummies.
Yeah, and that's because they're a sacred creature, apparently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
It's
Egypt,
bullshit.
yeah.
That's a bullshit statement.
So what's the difference between a mummy and a skeleton?
Mummy still has skin and human-like features to it. A skeleton is nothing but the bones, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
a mummy
this is
has
like an anatomy test.
A mummy has some soft tissue remaining, so
Yeah.
skin or some of the. We'll get
Eyes.
into some of the organs that sometimes they left. here and
Wieners.
there.
Sometimes they have wieners left.
Yeah, exactly. But soft tissue.
Yeah.
Skeleton,
Yeah.
as you said, is just bones.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome. So, how did they make mummies? So, I mean, first you get to embalm the body, right?
Yep.
So you take a big hook. This
Yep.
is the Egyptian process. So
Yeah.
the on-purpose process. Take a big hook, and you stick it up the nose of the corpse.
Right through the nose hole.
Yeah. Get
Yeah.
it right up there so you can jiggle it around and break up the brains and pull it out through the nose.
Yummy.
Then you take a knife and you cut along the side of the body. Now, in Egyptian, this person was known as the slicer.
Yep.
And so you cut the body and pull out the organs, lungs, liver, stomach, and intestines. Take it all out, put it in a jar.
Pickle it.
Yeah, with a bunch of salt. Exactly. The Egyptians did leave the heart, though. They thought you needed that after death, so they left it in there.
To live on? Is that, as a god or is that the story?
They just believed you needed it for the afterlife, yeah.
Got it.
And then you put the like I said, organs in jars. You would, like you said, pickle them, salt them.
It's like kimchi.
Keep them, with the body, and then you basically pack the body. Now that you have pulled the brains and the organs out of, you also pickle it. You pack it in salt.
Packle it.
Packle it.
Well, there's also an alternative to packing it with salt. Do you know what the alternative was?
Well, there's lots of ways you can mummify. I'm talking Egyptian. What
Okay.
are you referring to?
So they used to rinse the body with wine and spices like a turkey. Like once all the internal organs were out, they would put the heart back in, and then they would rinse the body out with a wine and spice mixture.
Baste it up real nice.
Yeah, I just thought that was a delicious part of the story, but continue.
Extra crispy.
Yeah.
And then you wait like a month or more, 40 days or so.
Yeah.
And I think during this time, they would use this time to collect all of their stuff that they were going to bury with the person, the mummy.
Yeah.
They believed that you needed these possessions in the afterlife type of thing.
Wine, especially beer,
Gold. Lots
yeah.
of gold, especially if you're a king.
Ceramics.
Once the body was dry and relatively odor-free at this point, you would stuff it with basically anything you could get, right? Linen, sawdust, herbs, and spices.
Let's get into this. Is almost a Thanksgiving episode.
Almost. And then you sew up the spot where you cut open before, and then you wrap it up in bandages or whatever linen you've got available. And now it's ready to put in a tomb.
Then you wait centuries to unveil it.
You put it in a tomb at 100 degrees for 1,000 years. Let it cook.
And then take it out. It's nice and crispy. You can peel the skin right off the bone. At what point do you curse the body? Is that before all of this happens? After it happens? Once you put it in the tomb?
No, I mean the Egyptians didn't curse them, but the mummies definitely are believed to have been cursed, or they cursed other things. Was the belief?
Somebody has to put a curse on the mummy or something in order to have the curse there. But I digress.
But why? So why did Egyptians do this? Do you know?
Well, I believe that they did it as a sort of memoriam, as a way for somebody to pass into the afterlife and become a god. They did it to, that's probably false too, because not everybody that was mummified was deserving to be a god. But they did it to the pharaohs, and the pharaohs were suspected to become gods in the afterlife, right? I might be making that up too. I don't know. I'm assuming so. Yeah, in order to have an afterlife period, you needed to be mummified.
Yeah, that the mummified body was the home for the soul and the spirit. And if you destroyed the body, the spirit might be lost.
Yeah.
So they had a really complex way of thinking about this spirit, and they broke it up into like 3 different parts. But basically, they just believed that you needed to preserve the body to keep the spirit intact and, preserve the afterlife.
Would you like to be mummified?
Absolutely not. No.
Do you want to be
creepy as fuck?
What about? I mean, what is your plan for the afterlife? Do you plan on being cremated, buried, mummified? You don't want to be mummified. You've ruled that out. So what's on your agenda? What would you like Allison to do?
Just cremate me, cheap
Okay.
and easy.
Yeah, I think that's my way too. Would you like? I saw that there's some ways that you can plant trees with a body, like you become like part of the tree. Do you want that?
Become a tree?
Yeah, like they give you like this big sack, and they put you in the sack with like a bunch of dirt and the roots and stuff, and then the tree grows into you and you become the tree.
I mean, that sounds pretty cool. I want to be a really tall fucking tree.
Yeah, just keep in mind. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what happens when you die. If you want me to try to plant a tree with you or something. So, but not mummified. That's the moral of the story. Not salted.
No,
and
don't
roasted.
jerkify me.
Okay, all right.
So there's a lot of mummies out there. We talked about millions of these mummies that happen either naturally or man-made. The most popular, most famous mummy is probably King Tutankhamun.
King Tut. I mean, he's definitely the most famous. He made his rounds. Like they took his mummy around pretty recently. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember them doing like you could go see King Tut like in San Francisco and like New York, and so that's definitely the most famous mummy.
I mean, he's the most famous, but I mean, he didn't really, while he was alive, didn't really do much. I mean, he was a king, right? He was the 12th pharaoh of the 18th Egyptian dynasty. He lived about 1300 BC. Basically, he was a really young king. I mean, he died at age 19. So he was, I think he was king for like 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a tiny kid. Yeah, young. Like you said, 18. That's a lot of big burden.
Yeah, so he didn't really do much while he was king. But so then why is he the most famous mummy then, in your opinion?
I would say because of the discovery of his mummy and the nonsense that ensues after they find his mummy.
Yeah,
Right?
I think that's
that was
fair.
To me, that was one of the first. I feel like it's one of the biggest publicized like mummy findings or mummy unveilings of all time.
Yeah, so for sure there was a lot of to do around the discovery of his tomb, and I think to date he's still the only royal mummy that's been discovered with basically it's all of his priceless treasures intact. So I mean it's definitely was an interesting find. Basically there was this guy named Howard Carter, and he had this sponsor named Lord Carnarvon, and they spent like 30 years looking for tombs of Egyptian pharaohs. And in 1922, they found it. And like you said, Chase, I mean, what they found was just kind of astounded the world, basically. It was just this little room full of all the shit that we talked about earlier, gold and
Wine.
all kinds of...
Wine.
You're very fixated on the wine.
Well, I just think, and the reason that I mean, amongst other reasons, but one of the reasons I love wine and beer is because you're drinking history, and it literally ties us as a civilization, and it's something that the mummies had, it's something that the Romans had, all of this stuff that the wine ties us together. So yes, I am fixated on the wine.
It probably tastes like serious ass after 3,000 years.
I don't know. It should age quite well, maybe. But I know the 2000 BC vintage is one of the greatest ones. So the beer I know tastes like donger because Dogfish Head did they did like DNA testing on beer in a mummy's tomb, and like figured out the chemical compounds and then created a beer like commercially for it, and it tastes like ass. So,
I bet it does.
Yes,
yeah.
I would say it's gross.
So they open this tomb. This is where kind of people started talking about this curse of the pharaohs, because a lot of people died some shortly thereafter the discovery of the tomb. Some people that were associated with the discovery died a long time after, but a lot of them were under kind of mysterious circumstances.
Well, yeah, and as soon as you go into King Tut's tomb, they found a clay tablet, and right in the antechamber, which I think is like the little chamber before the main chamber. But they found a clay tablet in there, and it read, after it was deciphered, I think it was in hieroglyphics, of course, or something.
It wasn't in English?
It wasn't in English. It was in calligraphy. But death will slay with his wings whoever disturbs the peace of the pharaoh. And that was front and center right as they walk in on a clay tablet, supposedly. So.
Yeah, so I mean, there's, like I said, a lot of people that died either shortly thereafter or at some point. I guess everyone dies, but I mean, some of these are that I saw that were attributed to this curse were pretty loose. Like 20 years after you enter the tomb,
yeah.
you die. I mean,
and they're not like
curse.
12-year-olds finding this either. So I mean, it's middle-aged men at best that are finding this. So.
I mean, some of the interesting ones to me. I don't know if you saw some of these, but like so, Lord Carnarvon, his name was George Herbert. He was the man that financed the whole excavation and the finding of the tomb. He was one of the first ones to die after the tomb was found. And so he died from tearing open a mosquito bite.
Yeah, got blood poisoning.
While shaving, yeah. And died of blood poisoning thereafter about a month and a half after the opening of the tomb and the kind of reports of the curse.
Yeah. It was, I mean, look, that's not, I don't think that's a curse. I think don't fucking shave with a mosquito bite.
Well,
especially in the 1920s.
Some of these other ones are kind of interesting. So